It is time for the very first legal talk here on eRadio, and joined today by Janusz Luterek from Hahn Hahn Attorneys. He will be our first guest today on the legal talk, and a very interesting topic as well. But firstly, Janusz, I would like you to introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about yourself.
Thank you very much. So I'm a partner at the firm of Hahn Hahn. We have been around for 71 years this year, so it's quite an old firm. Of course, I wasn't around when the firm started. I'm not that old. But we do have a history, which is a very good thing. Myself, I've been in practice for 25 years at the firm, of which the last 20 years I've been dealing with food law and consumer law, which is a very interesting topic. I have a background in chemical engineering as well as law. So when things become technical, I'm the go-to guy because obviously I can understand the technical issues as well, not just the legal issues.
Wow, okay, that's very interesting. And that brings us to our very first topic for today, and that's what does the law say about expired foods? So the question is, Janusz, what does the law say? When is food considered expired?
So the answer is that in our law, there is no such thing as expired food. People use this term generically and they say, oh, this is expired. But as you'll hear today, depending on the type of food, the date of durability, in other words, how long it can last and still be edible, is defined differently for different categories of food.
Okay, so the next question, of course, is can a shop sell food after its best before date?
So this is a key question because when one goes to look in a supermarket on the shelf, the foods don't say expiry date. What they often will have on them is either a BB or best before date or a use by date. Now, best before date is defined in our law in such a way that it does not mean that the food is no longer safe to eat. What it means is that it's a date after which the food will probably not have 100% of its quality, but it will still be safe. And personally, in my grocery cupboard at home, I will have food which can sometimes be several years after its best before date, and I will quite happily eat it and feed it to my family, no problem at all. But that is because it's the best before date. And that's simply a date that indicates if you eat it before this date, it's at its best. But after that, for quite some time, it's still safe, and usually the quality doesn't change much either.
Okay, so that's the best before date. The next one is, what about after its sell-by date? Because there's a difference.
Yes, so there's a difference. So best before dates appear often on canned foodstuffs, on dried food such as maize meal or rice or products like that. Sell-by dates usually appear on foodstuffs which are more likely to reach the end of a useful life sooner. Ready-made meals, the ones that you find in the refrigerated section in your supermarket.
Yeah.
And the sell-by date indicates actually to the supermarket rather than to the consumer. This should be sold by a certain date because the person must still be able to take it home and then keep it for another 2 or 3 or 4 days at home before eating it. You're not expected to buy a foodstuff on the sell-by date and eat it the same day. And sell-by date, therefore, is different from use-by date.
Okay. Now, fresh produce like milk and meat and cooked meals, they have a use-by date. How is that different from a best before date? And can it be sold after its use-by date?
So use-by date is the closest thing we have in our law to a true expiry date. And use-by date should not be taken lightly because when a company decides to place a use-by date on a foodstuff, and it's typically refrigerated, chilled foods, these foodstuffs actually quite soon after that use-by date can become unsafe to eat. And certainly the quality will deteriorate to the point where you probably wouldn't want to eat it. The sausage might become slimy, there might be a smell. So use-by date, in your mind, consider that the expiry date. Now, in your home environment, if you have a good refrigerator and it's set to 4 degrees or 3 degrees Celsius, so it's well chilled, you may be able to eat it for another day or two after the use-by date. But for a general consumer that's not that careful about how cold things are, stick to that use-by date.
Okay. And then the next question, Janusz, is, can a shop remove the date sticker and sell food on special? So let's say a manager is walking around in the store and he sees that the food still looks fine to him. Can he just put a new sticker on?
So this is very interesting, because while it's not illegal at all to sell a food after its best before date, it is completely illegal. In fact, it's a criminal offense to tamper with or remove or cover up a date once it's been applied. So if a can has a date and it says best before 1 June 2022, if you remove that date, you've just committed a criminal offense. But if you sold that can in December of this year, 6 months after the best before date, not a problem. You would be allowed to do that. So advice to shop owners is don't cover up the date, don't remove the date. Sell it with the date that's indicated if it's a product that's still safe to sell, and put it on special. Put a sign up that says, these products are after their best before date, they're still safe to eat, and you're going to get 30% off or 50% off or whatever the case might be.
Okay, well, that's interesting to know. And the next question, Janusz, is what does a consumer do if a shop is selling food after its best before date?
So this often comes to me. I will get emails from our website and people are very upset and they say, this in the supermarket has sold me a can of fizzy cold drink and the best before date was last week. And they think they're going to die and they think they're going to get R1 million. And actually, there's nothing wrong with selling a food after its best before date. If you're unhappy with the quality, then you just take it back for a refund. That's actually all you can do. So a shop selling a foodstuff after its best before date, which actually hasn't gone off, it's just a few days after its best before date, nothing you can do about it except to return it and get a refund.
Okay, and what about after its use-by date?
So that's a different story, because obviously, as I said before, after its use-by date, it may in fact pose a health problem. And there the consumer could either go to complain back at the retailer, call the customer care line, or if it's a small shop, go back to the shop and tell them, look, you're selling food after its use-by date, you're actually posing a health risk. Or if they don't want to listen to you, you could go and lodge a complaint with the local municipality's health department, the so-called environmental health practitioner. The acronym is EHP. In the old days, we used to call them health inspectors. And they would then go out to the store and give them a notice and say, don't do this.
And, another interesting question, Janusz, is why would products like sugar or salt have a best before date?
Because people are silly, and that's a real reason. Because there's actually no reason to put it on. And when I go to the supermarket and I see a best before date on a bag of sugar, I actually burst out laughing, and people think I'm mad because there's a guy walking down the aisle laughing to himself. But yes, there is actually no requirement to place it on those products. But big businesses, big supermarkets have rules, and their rule is everything will have a best before date, so they put a best before date.
Geez, even on water. I've seen it before on water.
Exactly. No, you want to laugh. That's why, my wife dreads going shopping with me, because I walk down the aisle and I start laughing. And nobody knows why, and I'm seeing these things. So.
No, I will laugh with you. I agree. Janusz, how come there are shops that specialize in selling food after its best before date at a discount, but then other shops remove those products from sale?
This is all to do with quality. So if I have a business that specializes in selling foods which are high quality, my claim is this is our brand, we only sell high quality products, then when your product reaches its best before date, you'll remove it from sale. Because as the law says, after its best before date, it's still perfectly safe, but the quality starts to deteriorate. So I have, for example, pasta sauces in my pantry. And because they're 2 or 3 years after their best before date, they're no longer nice and red. They've gone a bit orange. The color's faded a bit. It's not a problem at all. I would eat it right now. It's no problem at all. But because I am a quality retailer, I don't want my brand to be damaged, so I wouldn't sell it. But of course, there's another market, and there are people who will buy a product that's slightly lower quality, still safe, but at a discount. And therefore, there are businesses who specialize in this. They will go and buy up. Often they buy up stock before it's expired. Or I shouldn't use the word expired, before that. It's what's called short-dated stock. So when a manufacturer sees, goodness gracious, this stock of mine has only got another 2 or 3 weeks or a month left, they will sell it to one of these retailers who will then place it on sale at a discount because they sell products after their best before date. And I've seen one, I know there's one, for example, in Fishhook that I've been to, and they have a perfectly good sign in the window, and the sign says, the products sold in this store are after their best before date, but they're perfectly safe to eat, and they sell them at a reasonable discount. Nothing wrong with that, can be done. Where the difficulty sometimes comes in is they will sell branded products. So a retailer that has its own brand, which has removed product from sale, ends up on their shelves. And the consumer who now has a can of beans at home with the retailer's name on it forgets they bought it at this after best before date store and can lodge a complaint with the original retailer and say, gee, your beans aren't as good as they usually were. That is the one complaint that I've seen.
Okay, and then the final question is, let's say I drink a cold drink or a packet of sweets after its best before date. Would make me sick? Should I worry?
So I get a lot of these complaints. People watch a lot of American TV and they all think they're going to retire if they find something like this. So they'll contact me with great glee and they'll say they bought a can of soda and it expired. They use the word expired. It expired last week, last month, or whatever the date is, and they think they're going to sue for millions. But of course, if you consider what is in that can, there's nothing that can actually go off. It's phosphoric acid, some sweetener, some water, and some CO2. That can could probably last a decade. So nothing's going to happen to you with products like that. Where you have to be careful is if you buy, for example, a tin of beans or a tin of fish, if it's bloated at all, or if there's rust on it, or anything like that. Don't touch it, don't eat it. But certainly many, many products well after their best before date are perfectly safe. Nothing will happen to you. But as I say, the color might not be quite right. The sweet might be very hard. It's supposed to be a chewy toffee, but it's a crunchy thing. And yes, I have them in my pantry too.
Okay, well, that's interesting. Wow, what an interesting way to start off legal talk for this month of June. Janusz, thank you so much for your time today. My very last question to you is, how do we get in touch with you?
Sure. So we have a website. It's www.hahnlaw.co.za. I'm also on Twitter as CPA_lawyer. And then also Hahn Hahn has a presence on LinkedIn, but obviously that's more business to business. So one of those ways you can message, you can drop me a note on Twitter or comment and I can answer back. That's usually quite a quick way. Via our website, you'll find emails and you can always email a question.
Okay, and that's spelled H-A-H-N, Hahn Hahn Attorneys. Thank you so much for your time today, Janusz, and looking forward to the chat next week with Jaco. We'll be talking about COVID rental disputes, residential and commercial tenants not able to pay rent or full rent because of the economic impact. I think that's also going to be very, very interesting. But once again, thank you for your time, and I will now definitely look at use by and best before dates in a completely different way.
It's a great pleasure. Thank you for the interview. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks. Bye.